what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jeremy from Randolph Running Club, and as you can see from that intro there, I'm here today to talk to you guys about the Hoka Clifton 10. I've run about 60 miles in these bad boys, and it's allowed me to kind of formulate my thoughts and opinions here. Done all type of runs in these, from easy runs, long runs, even did a speed workout just to see how they felt. And yeah, let's get straight into it. So if you are familiar with the Hoka brand at all, you have probably heard about or run in the Clifton shoe itself, right? So this is kind of Hoka's, just bread and butter mainstay shoe, along with the Bondi, or Bondi, I should say. I think, never really sure how to pronounce that. The Rincon, those type of shoes that kind of make their core product offering. So this is their in middle of the road, kind of everyday daily trainer. Specs and features on this guy. It's got the jacquard knit upper, meta rocker, so kind of Hoka's patented meta rocker ride, and you have a molded EVA midsole and sock liner. You got durable abrasion rubber on the bottom, kind of standard fare. And in a bit of a shift for Hoka, these shoes, they come out in at 9.8 ounces, but the heel to toe drop is 8 millimeters. I think in the past, I'd have to double check this, but I think in the past, Hokas have typically been, 6 millimeter heel to toe drop, maybe even 5. So this is a bit of a departure in the sense that it's bringing them more in line and closer to other shoes from brands like Nike, Asics, Brooks, just the kind of standard 8 millimeters for a daily trainer, right? So I think the right place to start with these is to talk through just kind of the immediate step in feel, the comfort of the shoe. I think the first thing I noticed as soon as I put them on was, they have a great feel. The lockdown was great. You're just getting a really nice, snug and comfortable feeling around your foot, right? With that upper. I think there's nothing wrong with a mesh upper like this, and I definitely always look forward to, just feeling that, because it tends to feel almost tacky, might be the word, but in a good way, right? Like tactile, in the sense that you're kind of feeling the grit of it, and it feels like your foot is very locked in place and not going to necessarily be sliding around when you're on the run. So always a good sign, especially for a shoe that you might want to do some faster efforts in potentially. I really like that Hoka added this kind of like eyelet, dual eyelet locking system for the laces. I was able to really cinch down on the laces and felt like the tongue was not moving anywhere, despite the fact that it's not gusseted. So great there as well. I like the elf ear. Really helps you pull the shoe on your foot a little bit easier as well. And just in general, the foam, it's kind of, if you've ever run in a pair of Hokas, this EVA foam is kind of their bread and butter. It's a little bit old school compared to some of these supercritical foams that you see these days in shoes that have plates and everything, or Piba, for instance. But I would say definitely, you got that nice squishy step-in feel, and it's showing you what this shoe is really going to be about, which is maximum comfort for you on your daily miles. So all in all, a good sign on first, wear, just putting my foot straight into the shoe. I think they ran true to size for sure. I got my standard size 13, and I recently ran in a different pair of shoes in size 13, and that gave me a terrible blister, but no problems like that with these Hokas. Just a good, comfortable all around upper, midsole, everything about it, no complaints there. So obviously it's a running shoe. The next thing you're going to want to do after you put your foot in there is take it out on a run. So I wasted no time breaking these guys in. I think the first run that I did with these shoes was about 6 miles. I like to do that just because I think it really can tell me a lot about the shoe, if I like it or if I don't. I can throw in some strides, things like that. And what I found was, these are A-okay. Just about A-okay, I'll say. I don't think there's anything super exciting, and maybe that's the right thing. When you're talking about a daily trainer shoe, you want something that's going to be kind of familiar, comfortable, kind of like that old friend. Maybe you haven't talked in a while, but as soon as you get in contact with them, everything kind of feels like it falls back into place, right? The world's how it should be. And that's really how it feels with these Hokas. I hadn't run in a pair of Cliftons since I think the Clifton 8 or 7, so it's been a couple years. and it felt very familiar despite the change in the stack height, despite some little things that they've tweaked with the upper. I think it honestly feels like it might be the same blast as the previous shoes, right? Just the way it feels and fits my foot felt very familiar. And that's not a bad thing, right? While it might not be the most exciting thing, I would say on that initial run and each subsequent run after that, I definitely felt as though the ride was extremely stable. I didn't feel like I had any kind of ankle instability wearing these shoes. And it's not necessarily a stability shoe, but you know, what I find is with some of these higher stack height shoes these days, you can definitely feel like you're on stilts a little bit and you're not so much connected with the ground. Whereas these, I felt like they had a good balance between cushion and ground feel, which is always a good sign. The rubber that Hoka used on the bottom was pretty solid. I felt that even though I took these out in the rain here and there, down here in Florida, the traction didn't give me any real issues. And I think the biggest thing that you look for in a shoe like this is, yes, you want to give you some energy return back. Yes, you want it to have a little bit of propulsion on that toe off. But most importantly, I mean, it's going to be for soaking up the bulk of your miles, right? So you want something that's going to have a nice, comfortable, cushy feel. And I definitely felt like every single time I ran these, I felt fresh, right? It didn't feel like the road was beating up my legs. They're definitely, even though it's EVA and it's not the super fancy, exciting foams of some of these other brands, I feel that these shoes definitely hit the mark on just that daily comfort. You're getting a good amount of compression, and it just felt like they were really taking some of that impact. And I'm a bigger guy, you know, I'm 6'5", 215, 220 pounds. So I would say, you know, if they worked for me, I think for the majority of runners, I think you'll find these to be pretty comfortable and nice. Now, I will say on a faster effort, you know, I did an interval workout in these one day, and I think they handled it okay. They were able to react to the change in pace a decent amount. But the shoe definitely, I would say the thing that is lacking from from a performance perspective is, you know, there is no plate. You're not really getting any boost from this foam, right? It's not a super energy resilient foam. So what I found is when you get into that toe off kind of motion, when I'm looking at shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 that I recently reviewed on the channel, I want something that gives me that bit of pop, right? That gives me that extra bounce to my step. And you don't necessarily find that with these. I think you actually kind of sink in a little bit rather than be propelled forward. So I think this shoe, although you could in a pinch, just due to the relatively lightweight for a daily trainer, you could in a pinch run a fast effort in these. You could race in them potentially. It's definitely not the idea, right? Like this is your daily transportation. This isn't your sports car. So just keep that in mind. You know, I think this could definitely be a shoe that you have if it's your one and only, but it's not the most versatile shoe just by nature of the foam and the kind of the way the shoe's been constructed. And last thing I'll say as far as shoe performance, while I did enjoy that upper on the immediate step in, and I do feel that it was comfortable, didn't give me blisters or anything, no hot spots, I found that when I was wearing these shoes, you know, it's summertime, it's Florida, I'm really digging the colors and everything, and you know, I'm just having a good time running in these, but I sweat a lot, right? Like if you've seen any of these videos or you ever seen me in person, sweating is what I do, especially while I'm running, and especially in the summertime here. And I found that this upper, after some time, while I'm on these runs, I found that it was starting to kind of absorb water, but it wasn't dispelling it quite as quickly as it was absorbing. So on some of the harder efforts or longer runs, I think I took these up to about 8 miles at the longest. Definitely towards the end of that run in particular, I just felt like it was getting a little bit squishy, a little bit sloshy. And, you know, while you might not sweat as much as me necessarily, if you're running in these in a race or something, you know, maybe a half marathon, for instance, and you're going through aid stations where the ground can be a little bit wet, you might encounter some of that issue there. So let's talk about the durability of the shoe. So I'll show you here the bottom of this guy. You can see kind of how it's holding up for 60 miles. Hopefully that's in focus. But yeah, I think the shoe's doing pretty well. That's kind of been my Achilles heel with Hoka for the last couple of shoes that I've run in them. But for the last couple of shoes I've run in with Hoka, I find that the durability of, kind of how they get these shoes to be such a lightweight is they cut down on the rubber coverage on the bottom of the shoe. So it's just a ton of exposed EVA foam. And when this foam touches asphalt, concrete, etc. on your day-to-day runs, it's just going to get abused and worn down, right? And I think what I've seen here with these Cliftons, Hoka seems like they've kind of learned their lesson slightly. It looks like they put a little bit more high abrasion rubber in certain places, really critical spots on the shoe. But also, I don't know if they changed the rubber formulation. It just seems like this rubber isn't wearing down quite as quickly as it had in the past with Cliftons and Bondis that I've run in. So a good sign, right? I've got 60 miles on these. They still feel fresh. They feel exactly like how I remember when I pulled them out of the box. So I have no doubts that, you could easily get 200, 300 miles out of these. And if you're a lighter runner, somebody lighter than me, potentially more, right? 400, 500 miles. So I think that's a pretty good sign, especially considering that next we're going to talk about the value of the shoe, right? We're all price conscious of these things. So, at 150 bucks, what can I say about the Hoka Clifton at 150 bucks, right? It's an interesting conundrum because I think to a certain extent, that's not a terrible price for a daily trainer. And I think it's priced in line with the market. But at the same time, I do feel like for not a lot more money, you can get shoes that tend to feel a little bit more, dare I say, just fun to run in, more exciting. And I think it's one of the biggest things, right? Like, what is the shoe that's going to make you excited to go outside, going to make you excited to go and crush some miles and put in a harder effort? So on two ends of the spectrum, I'll mention two shoes that I've recently reviewed on the channel, right? The Nike Vomero 18 that I recently reviewed. I think I have both of these at a similar mileage, and I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I'm probably gonna go in one way or the other and donate one pair, not the other pair. And I feel like the Vomero, for basically the same price, I think that shoe actually is $150 now that I think about it. It's just so much more of a fun, energetic ride. Even though the shoe, I think, weighs a little bit more, it feels more propulsive, it feels more energetic, and I found that it's just more of a plush experience, right? So I think that's one end of the spectrum. If you only care about daily miles and maybe not a speed shoe that can kind of do everything. But then I think about the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, right? So that's a shoe I believe was $10 or maybe $20 more than this one. So you're spending a little bit more, but I think there's nothing that this Hoka can do that Saucony can't, but the same can't be said for the Hoka, right? So I ran in both those shoes back to back a couple days ago here. And what I found was the Hoka was great. I ran in it the day before, kind of an easier run. And I was thinking, okay, this is nice. This is exactly what I remember. I'm ready to do my review. And the next morning I took out the Sauconys for like a 7-mile run. And my first thought was, wow, this run just feels so much more inspiring. Same route, same elevation, everything is the same kind of weather. But I just felt a little bit more like I was getting that extra little boost, that extra spring in my step, if you will. And it's, again, I'll say it's not a problem. I think these shoes, for what they're intended for, perfect, right? But I do think Hoka needs to kind of get with the times. If you're going to be charging these premium prices, right, that are kind of in line with your competitors, you have to be offering the same kind of features and value that your competitors offer. So just something to think about. So I'll close this out by saying, would I buy these again? I think so, definitely. I'm in a very blessed position, right, where I'm making content, I'm making reviews about shoes, so I kind of cycle through shoes pretty frequently. So for me, I'm probably going to donate these, but that's not because I don't like them. It's just because, I only have so much space and I don't want to be hogging up the shoe rack for my wife or something like that when there's other shoes that I'm going to be buying and trying out, right? But I definitely think if you're familiar with Hoka and you enjoy the ride of a Hoka, I think this shoe, they didn't mess up anything. You're going to enjoy that. I think if you've never tried a Hoka and you're coming from a different kind of traditional brand, like a Saucony, Brooks, Asics, etc., I think these are worth a try. I think you'll enjoy it, but maybe hold out for a sale or something maybe before they come out with the Hoka Clifton 11 or a shoe like that. Just because I think if you already have an Asics Nova Blast or an Endorphin Speed or something of that nature, right? I think those shoes are just a little bit more exciting and they offer kind of a similar experience to this plus some. So just something to think about. I like these shoes. I'd buy them again. I recommend them. I think it's a great baseline daily trainer, and then you can build off of that and kind of build your rotation out. But if you already have one of those other pairs of shoes I mentioned, you're not necessarily missing anything either, right? So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for watching thus far. If you've run in these shoes or experienced them at all, please let me know, drop a comment. Maybe, we can chat down there. Feel free to like, subscribe. It only helps the channel and helps me bring more content like this to you guys. And I just want to say thank you so much for making it this far and for rocking with me. I appreciate you guys. Remember to run fast and run strong. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.